Hello. So sweet to be connecting with everyone. So I'm excited to, as we all just sort of slowly join the discussion this morning. Welcome. Oh, look at all these people showing up. Yay. Well, I'm just going to, give us a little bit of time to arrive. I can see you all popping in. Hi, Timber. Hi, Lori. Carolina. Danielle. Great. Yeah, I have and I know Sarah looks like she's joining us, but she's got it set up, but she's not there yet. Wonderful. Wow. It's Tuesday felt just like a big, download, and I got a lot of great feedback from y'all, so thanks for sharing with me. Today we're going to just do a few things. One is we'll just once we give it a little time for people to arrive, we'll do a little grounding meditation, and then open it up to questions. I have a few questions that have been posted on the Facebook page that I'll address, and I want to hear your questions and experiences and interest and feedback and stuff like that. So we're just waiting a little bit for everybody to get here since it's just 10 o'clock. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm excited I get to see you next week.
Oh, me too. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yay. If you don't know, I'm going to Denver next week, and I lived there for 25 years, so it'll be a good trip. I'll be driving out starting tomorrow, actually, and stopping in Wyoming to see my spiritual mentor, Don Eaglewoman, on Saturday, and then making my way to Denver. Sort of a loose time frame in that I'm going to spend the first week seeing clients and visiting friends, and then going down to New Mexico on the weekend to visit with longtime family friends, gather with family to honor my grandmother's life, who passed at 97 years old on Valentine's Day this year, and we're going to lay her ashes to rest where she was first settled in the United States. Her parents came to a little mining town in New Mexico in 1921, and when she was 9 months old, they came across on a boat and everything. So we're going back to that little town, and then I'll wander around in Colorado for a while before I get up the nerve to drive the 2 days home. So yay. I'm also going to make a digital recording of this, so it's not out. So, people have the option of listening to it rather than watching the video later, but I haven't started that yet. And it feels like we're getting a good group here. See if there's anybody else, but somebody's car is door is beeping. Oh. So just take a couple more minutes here before we start getting personal.
Well, my husband's out mushroom hunting, so if he comes back in, I may move to a different location.
Oh, well, we went out looking for morels last weekend, and we did not have any luck, although I think we were late because we came Sunday, and we had friends that hit it up in similar areas and got a lot of good results on Saturday. So
we had a little rain last night, so
foraging is fun.
I just wanted to apologize if I just get distracted here.
It's okay. And I know someone else had asked if they could join in a few minutes late because they were finishing up with their own clients. Since we're all so many people in this group are see clients, have patients and things like that. I was like, of course, join us whenever you can. So feels really good. It feels like this is gonna, for the most part, be here for our call today. like I said to some of you that were on earlier, I'd like to start by us just sort of getting grounded together, and then we'll go into questions and my, the practice that I want to offer I'll do towards the end, since I feel like it would be good for us to get the questions in and out, and maybe that'll add something to what I want to put in the practice today. I really offered this concept of the practice. I should start recording. Without knowing exactly what I was going to teach, because I wanted to listen to what came up and then go, that's what would be right for this practice. So now I'm getting excited because I know I feel in, what really feels right for this session. And I already have an idea about what we need for the next session. But sometimes you have to just put it out there and trust that the information is going to drop in right on time. So if you could just take a moment to close your eyes and take a deep breath with me, unless you're driving. And just notice that you're giving yourself this time to nourish your soul, to validate your intuition and your capacity as a healer, and to be supported by community. In your mind's eye, become aware of your connection to the earth, that grounding cord that's at the base of your spine, connecting all the way down through the floor into the earth like roots of a tree, and really holding you in a flexible yet strong connection with your source of foundation on this planet. Now recognize your bubble, that bubble of energy, that space around you, your aura. Take a look at it with your mind's eye. If it's way out or bulging in certain directions towards something else your consciousness is aware of, or a person, just pull it back so that it's nice and balanced around your physical body. Or maybe it's got some holes in it and you want to patch those up. To see that aura bubble being around your body and about the distance of if you had your arms stretched out and could touch it with your fingertips. And paint it a new color. Give it a color that's inspiring to you today. I'm going to go with lavender because my lilacs are in bloom. And finally, just clear out the center of your head. That space between your ears and behind your eyes, your psychic space, your intuitive space. Imagine it being cleared out of anybody else's attention that might be on you. And put something in that space that's yours to claim it for yourself. Your journal, maybe a favorite stone like a crystal or a flower. To see that center of head space have something that is yours that holds that space for you. Now just take a deep breath, and I welcome you to open your eyes and be present for our connection as a community. Thank you for being here. Yay. Well, for me, it's like pretty amazing whenever we engage in these like touchy subjects like spiritual entities, how they all start clamoring to get our attention. I don't know if any of you have experienced that yet since the class started, but literally after I taught on Tuesday and I was like, wow, I feel great. Knock, 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 knock. Somebody was knocking on my door a couple hours later and said, I'm really sorry. I'm going to make it right, but I just accidentally sprayed poison on your entire 8-acre hayfield. I just killed all the grass with poison because I was supposed to be doing it for the neighbor, and then I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to do it on this part too. And so I was like, oh. And so moving into this property for me has been, the lady that lived here had a lot of beings, and that was something I had to contend with, and that's why it took her 3 years to sell a property in a very high turnover real estate spot. And so it's interesting, all the people she used to engage with are like to have a lot of beings in their space, and I was like, oh great, more beings, more seniority opportunities. So I'm still working through that one, but I trust it'll be, it just reminded me I need to work my space, not just my personal space, my house, but also my land, and really hold the land space for protection and such. So I'd love it if we could just take a moment for people to just say their name, and if you have any questions or want to, state why what inspired you to join us, that would be great too. So I guess since it might just be a little bit easier if I just call you out, since so we don't talk over each other. Do you want to go first, Sarah? Oh, you need to unmute, yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Malik. I live in Southern Indiana. And Natalie, I love your work. I remember we did some things. It's been, I think, a couple years now. I don't remember how long, but and then my friend Kathleen down there in the dark invited me to consider. And I'm here because my little bubble's been really bruised, and I hardly can exhale. I've been giving so much, and so it's very timely for me to be working with my own protection of my energy and space and heart. And so I'm kind of deep in the mud right now, and it's a beautiful fertilizing. I feel like I'm in the compost. So I'm kind of deep down in the compost right now, but happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Thanks for being here, Sarah. Great. So I'm going to call out Danielle next. I'm going to get a notepad in case I need to write any questions.
Hi, I'm Danielle Karen. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I'm really excited for this training. And I'm a psychotherapist, and I have a few questions about whether anyone can learn to see these beings. And I wasn't sure with this training if, most people already can do that. I can't. And then I just had a client, like you said, like things should come up. So I just had a client saying they had could feel this dark energy, and it was coming into their eye, and they could feel it in their eye. And just really figuring out how to differentiate whether that's their own part, or is it, a soul that is uninvited. And then I'm curious about the spiritual seniority and sovereignty, and if you could also talk about how it's, I guess, sovereignty as it relates, how it's different. So, yeah, those are my questions.
Cool. I wrote those down. So, great. Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah.
So how about Lori, who everybody else, where it says Hannah, it's really Lori. It's just that it's her daughter's account.
I'm in disguise. So Sarah, I've been sifting compost. There's some great stuff down in there. I am not in the profession, but I've been working with Natalie a couple years and having some pretty life-altering experiences. And it feels like one of my biggest challenges is learning that seniority. And I'm curious, Natalie, if cord or hook can present more like an entity. Just trying to identify what's been going on with me this week after the class.
That's a good one.
I'm grateful to be here.
Thanks, Lori. How about Stephanie?
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Carlson, and I'm also a therapist in Denver. And I'm using the Zoom app on my phone, so I hope that's okay. I don't know if it's
looks
better
good.
on a desktop. So I can only see one person at a time. I don't know if that's normal. But anyway, I'm happy to be here. And man, I guess like my interest in this course, I've known Natalie now for a couple of years, and my interest in this course is around my own sensitivities and how to use them working with my clients and my patients, but also just in my own life, how to protect myself with my sensitivities. And it started when I began smelling other beings. I know that might sound strange, but I have all kinds of smells that come to me all the time, and they wake me up, and it's actually mostly pretty cool. And then in my therapy work, I've begun to see them, and I see them as orbs, and I see them as different colors and different sizes and different intensities and things. And so I'm really just curious to learn from Natalie, and curious to learn about my own experiences, and how to use the information that I'm receiving to benefit all involved.
Awesome. Wow. I love that share. And it's true. We all see differently. That's one thing I was actually thinking about last night, is how there's a framework for understanding some of the languaging and understanding and how things are seen that I have from my training. And then there's the other stuff that I've added through what I see over and over again, and it looks the same to me over and over again, but it doesn't mean it's going to look the same for everyone. But I do feel like there's a spiritual agreement, or an agreement about how we see something, particularly like with the content of what I learned through my psychic training and the lineage of the Berkeley Psychic School, which is, you know, how certain types of entities present themselves. So yeah, that's I'm just going to check here because it looks like someone. Oh, okay. It's just somebody saying that she's on the phone, not on the computer. So how about you, Timber? You want to share what you're? Oh, I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
Now we can hear. Come a little closer, maybe.
Okay, maybe. I'm on my phone too, because my laptop is being a little ridiculous. Can you hear me now?
When you're close to your phone, yeah, we can hear you better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sort of quiet,
Okay.
but we got you.
Okay, I'll talk like loud. So yeah, I'm Timber, and I am here because, well, you called me, Natalie, and said that I should check this out. And I've always been able to sense, you know, beings in other people, and I'm mainly here so I can, sorry guys, my dog. I'm mainly here so I can learn how to recognize and better place and categorize these beings, I suppose, and learn how to work with them not only in other people but in myself.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I met Timber through my best friend from high school, because she's her son's girlfriend. So I was like, yeah, she's got such a natural gift, and it's like, come on, it's the earlier we get to learn these things and like have protection and understand we're experiencing, the more peaceful our life becomes. And so I'm so glad that you joined us, Timber. So how about Kathleen? You want to say a couple things? I know you've had a sort of stressful time, but if you just want to say hello or if you have any questions that you want to pop out there before the group.
Sure. I'm sorry about the sunglasses, but my eyes have been bothering me lately, so I'm just sort of protecting them. But this is me. But yeah, I love how the world is so synchronistic. Sometimes, and then other times, I'm like, wow, that's really synchronistic. So, and that's one of these times. It's sort of like things are happening around energies and entities in my life. Before the class with you, Natalie, and before we talked, and I guess preparing me for this. So I've been, in my heart and in my soul, I'm just really grateful that this is part of the synchronicity, that this class and you and everyone here, come together at this time for this reason. I feel it's really, really important for all of us for whatever reason. There's major stuff going on, and you're bringing some light to it for us, and together we can I don't want to say we'll survive, because it's not like we're not going to survive, but I feel there's a lot more things than I realized going on out there. So
I just want to say that Kathleen's also, she's an artist and she's a community advocate that's really making positive change in the world and taking this information to, I feel like that part of the reason that it's so valuable for you to have it is when you're working with the communities that you bring together to make a change in the world, like you can help navigate what the resistances are and what's keeping it from flowing and things like that. Make room for that path to keep going in a positive direction. So
thank you.
Yeah,
I was going to say I work one-on-one and with groups here as well, with women mostly. So it's really I have to be clear, and I have to be clear about being clear. So
great. And I think so, Carolina, do you want to say a word or two? I know you're getting ready to drive.
Yeah. No, I'm halfway between San Francisco and. Hi everyone, I'm Carolina Grace, and I just want to name that I find this really tender in my heart. I've just always been a very sensitive being, and I think I really learned how to take the exit strategy out of my body as a very little girl. And I think as a healer and as a woman at this time in my life, I'm really learning how to ground and how to actually honor the depth of what I know. I think that there was a way that I really, not that I thought, I just, yeah, I'm clairsentient, and and a triple empath. Like I just I feel things. And in a relationship I was just a part of, I would, in a argumentative space, I felt like I would just lose my ground entirely. And I was working with the healer, and he was just saying that, like, I had just had so many entities that were coming in, and then I would get them cleared, and they would kind of come dialogue. And living in California, I find my grounding cord, like I'm always just really bringing love to my roots, and finding that a more difficult than when I lived in Denver time with really staying rooted and grounded. And so I'm just super excited and honored, Natalie, to be a part of this, and to, I don't see entities. I oftentimes have a very busy mind and can really forget to bring awareness to the non realm. And so I just find this is great to add to my toolkit of really honoring my intuition and honoring maybe the little girl in me that really knew what she knew back then.
Mhm.
So, and cultivating a warrior who can really stand ground through it all.
Mm. Yeah, and I've known Carolina for maybe a decade socially, and also we've had some experiences through my practice, and so happy to have you here. I know there's this, I can relate to being this natural transmedium, and like you are, and just how sometimes it, when you're just that way, it's hard to actually know you're different, like how to explain that you're different, right? Because you've always been that way, right? Or how do your parents even teach you, or how does the world even give you the skills to manage something that they don't know how to manage, So thank you for being here. And I believe Cheyenne's on the phone. Is that you, Cheyenne?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you just say a few words if you'd like?
You bet. I'm glad I've been quiet this whole time. I didn't realize I was audible the whole time. I'm Cheyenne Cowell, and I live in Arvada, right outside of Denver. And there are so many curiosities that I have about this work, and I'm so thankful to be here with you guys. I'm feeling really strengthened just by getting to hear you all. I'm a body worker. So a lot of what happens for me is that I've had more of a sensitivity since I was young to ancestral, I don't even know to call them entities or beings, but just ancestral presence. And I'm really curious about that and how that plays into this work, and the difference between, working with ancestral patterns versus entities and beings, and getting more of a sense of when they're helpful ancestors, when they are holding somebody back or feeding off of somebody. I tend to feel things in people's meridians and in their fluid matrix, and have a sense of when there's a stagnation, when there's too much running, and when there's an ancestral component to it or something that's intergenerational. I have more and more of a sensitivity to that. But I feel like there's so much for me to learn, and I just get these very raw downloads sometimes, and I'm not always totally sure what to do with them. Mm. Sometimes my guides show me and there's grace, and other times I feel stuck. Mm. I've always had a lot of dreams since I was pretty small. The way that premonitions or visions come to me is more in dreams. And also very ancestrally oriented a lot of the time, or just kind of seeing things before they happen. And then more recently, I've just started to have more visions of when people are crossing. I'll know it. I'll know right in the present moment, and then I'll find out later that they were crossing. Or when I feel someone really suffering, that I know that will come to me in a dream, or I'll get a sense of it more and more when I'm awake now. And so I'm feeling really ready for some teaching and some support around it, because I struggle to breathe. Sometimes I get overwhelmed by it because I have no training really that is in this realm. So I'm very, very thankful to be here with you all. And also on behalf of my son, who is quite a warrior and carrying a lot for his patrilineal line, and feeling really clear that I need more tools to support him. Thanks, you guys.
Great. Thank you, Cheyenne. Wow, I love it. I feel like, the connection, or just the understanding the different ways that people perceive information is so interesting to me. And it's also like there's this magic around it, like, well, what are our senses showing us, and how do they show them to us, right? And I really believe that there's no right or wrong. We learn how to interpret things, but one of the things that I'm gonna do when we do our practice a little bit later is address a question that was brought up on the Facebook page by, I'm like trying to shrink my screen a little bit so I can get a bit, by Jennifer, regarding how she feels it in her body, but she can't really see it. And I've heard some of you say that you can see in a certain way, and others say that you don't really see or sense, have a clarity about the sensing of energy or an entity, and sort of defining it. And so that was really a huge part of my intention in creating this course, is just to put a framework around it and some information so you could start noticing what you're seeing and noticing repeats, so that if something, like for Stephanie, if it's a certain color orb that always is associated with a certain type of energy, then you'll start noticing that's your information that says this is maybe a control being in someone's space. It might not look like a spider to you, but it does look like a spider to a lot of the psychics that I know. So there's no right or wrong. It's just about understanding that and learning to translate what you're experiencing, and knowing that there are these different categories. And what I was going to say that Jennifer asked is about how she felt it in her body. And what I want to guide us through a little bit later in this practice session is actually taking the elevator up from the second chakra, which is below your belly button, where you feel everything empathically and you feel everybody's stuff in your body as you're encountering it. It could be, it's like the natural way that most of us learn to read. It's just such a biological way for us to read our environment. But as we get, if we're sensitives, that can be pretty overwhelming, because I've been in a situation where I felt somebody's broken bone in my body, or I've felt somebody's sexual abuse in my body, and that's pretty icky, hard to deal when you're holding a space as a healer, or you're not even sure you're a healer yet. That, that a lot of that was happening when I was younger and not knowing what I was seeing. I remember sitting in the audience as a minister was talking at a church my mom took me to, and feeling his sexual energy in such a disturbing way that I was like, I remember every detail about the room in that moment. And I mean, she took me to church hundreds of times, and I don't remember any of them in specific detail, but I remember that because I was like, oh my God, that feels unsafe. And so when we have this sensitivity that we feel in our body and read first, how can we make peace with it? Well, one of the practices is taking our sense from our body down in that second chakra, empathic feeling space, all up to here, where we can look at it with our intuition, where we can see it like it's the screen in front of you. And that makes it less of we get to be more neutral when we do that, and we get to be more clear because it's not like in our cells, and we also can feel more safe because we're not feeling somebody else's feeling. We're reading it, we're looking at it and going, I can actually help more when I'm looking at it versus feeling it. If I'm feeling it, I'll match you, and then I won't be able to help as much because I'll be in the energy. So I wanted just to touch on more questions before we go into that practice, but I felt like it felt important to say, because so many people were sharing, so many of you shared your different ways of reading things or sensing information, and I really liked hearing that. So I am going to go to, let's see, Danielle, you said you wanted to sort of understand the difference between seniority and sovereignty. And so I'm not sure necessarily the word sovereign, like what you might want to explain what you're meaning by sovereignty. But what I'm meaning by seniority is non-questioning, undoubting awareness that you have a boundary and a more power than a spirit that doesn't have a body. Because my belief system and everything I've witnessed is that if we have a body and there's a soul out there that doesn't have a body, we automatically have more seniority than it. But we just have to learn that and how be able to claim what our space is. So the more we practice, and that's why even though, so I should say also that a lot of this information, this is my information that I'm teaching, but the trainings that I received around working with beings and understanding what I was seeing was something that happened over the courses of like twice a week over the courses of years. So it takes time, it takes practice, and the information is important to have, and then we have to sort of practice. And so seniority when you're getting trained to be a transmedium, which is when you let another being speak through your throat, and a lot of times people's voice will even change because they're letting an entity speak through them that doesn't have a body. They take 4 years in teaching you that. You're training that for 4 years, and it's not because you don't have all the information the first 2 months, pretty much. It's because it takes practicing your seniority. You have to practice and practice and practice so that being doesn't take over you and stay in, so that being knows it only gets to come through your throat and it doesn't get to come down into the rest of your body. If you want to do it that way. I don't choose to do it that way because I can just communicate with the beings and relay the information. I don't need to let them hear my voice. It's not that necessary for me. But the point I was trying to make is that there's this seniority aspect that we have to practice as we relate to other entities, and part of it is just the permission level that we have to say, no, back off, I'm the boss here, like whatever words you want to put around it. I feel like it's like seniority over, first it's me having seniority over my body as a soul and going, okay, this is my body, you're not, this, and I am the only soul that gets to be in it. And then there's the piece of being able to take that seniority out into the world and have seniority over other beings that are specifically those that are coming in uninvited, because the helpful beings are not going to invade our space. They just, like I said, they show up with invitation. They only come when we invite them. And that I would sort of connect that also to Cheyenne, your question about ancestral patterns and whether they're helpful or harmful. There's this piece of what I believe in genetic spiritual inheritance, where we can have beings that get passed down through families. But there's also but those aren't they're not like the ancestor themselves. They may have come through that ancestor. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm sort of jumbling too many things together. But Danielle, do you want to clarify anything more about the seniority topic, or did I address that in the way you were looking?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And then Lori, you also sort of asked, talked about having seniority, the thing that, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, like Lori has had a very powerful mother that was a bit of a narcissist. And so that lesson that we all have around, as healers, I don't know a single healer that hasn't gone through their own personal having to step into our power relative to what life served us when we showed up on the planet in this body. All of us have some crux, something that has been in our path that said, okay, here's your obstacle, and it's made us stronger, but it's also caused a lot of stress, right? And so part of this whole path around seniority can be, what was the environment that invalidated our truth, right? And how can we reconnect with our the truth of our soul, like our intuition, the truth of what we know, the truth of our higher self giving us guidance, and validate that to strengthen our sense of seniority and our container for our self as a spirit. So, but when we are, my own experience had more to do with just, having very young parents. They were, teenagers when they had my brother and barely 20 when they had me. And so they were like partying in their youth while I was like wandering around, right? And so I had to really learn how to protect myself. So that was my, my personal crux is like being safe, right? When there was a lot of out of control adults around that back in those days, it was like, just bring the kid along. Who needs a babysitter? I think we could use a little bit more of that nowadays than such compartmentalization for children, but not maybe in the wildness that was happening in the sex, love, and rock and roll era. So hooks versus an entity, or like, I really realized when I was creating this course, I really struggled with this topic about, I almost categorized a vampire into the entity realm. But I kept looking at it and I looked at it and I looked at it psychically. And I was like, all these situations where I look at vampire energy, it's really not a being. It's a way a person in a human body runs their energy. And so it's what I would say is that hooks and cords can beings could probably feel to us like they have a hook or a cord in. That's true. Certain beings can attach to us in a way that feels like it's hooking or cording us. But those particular terms I use to reference when another human is pulling on our energy rather than when the entity itself is. There certainly can be that sense that the entity is creating that sensation in us, but I really think it's more that just differentiating between is it another human that's running that energy or using that kind of way of stealing energy from people, or is it something that doesn't have a body? Does that make sense, Lori?
Yeah, I guess that was my conflict this week was, typically it's third chakra where I get hit, and it was pretty nasty, and it was just hard to differentiate whether it was entity or person.
Well, and there's also this piece about when the person has an entity in their space that they let run themselves, right? So it's like it can be both.
Yeah.
It can be both when that person has a dominant entity that it's been, that runs their space. So it just doesn't mean that entity gets attached to you. It just means that they're invading your space through their attachment to that person.
Well, it sure feels like it.
Don't we all hate that?
But I just wanted to share something a little silly. In trying to cope with this yesterday, I got out my tiara.
You put your tiara on and you're like,
I did. It was awesome. I'm the queen here. It was great.
That's great. I think we all need a tiara or two. I think we should have like a little closet full.
It's my new tool.
And you already have, I wear today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. What else so I wanted to touch a little bit. I think that, I don't think you had a specific question, Stephanie. You were just sort of sharing about the fact that you see differently. Mm-hmm. And my feeling about that is that's awesome. And it's just, just going to be like your discovery around which patterns that you see repeating themselves. And for me, this information, I wouldn't have been able to teach this information 10 years ago because I hadn't seen it enough. I hadn't done enough readings where I saw over and over and over again the same pattern and how it showed itself to me. So, but I also invite you to ask your guides. That's something we're going to do in our next practice session, is call in a helper being if we want to, or a protector being. So that'll be fun. Mm-hmm. But ask your guides to make it clear, ask a helper being to make it clear to you or even ask them to help you map the information that I'm teaching to what you see.
Mm-hmm.
because I
Cool.
think
Thank
that's
you.
possible.
Yeah.
So I wanted to address there was some, and I just have to sort of move this to the side a little bit to hopefully get a look at, can you still see me and such? I'm staring at my computer without the zoom up. Lauren, who's a doctor, she's a medical doctor in California that's in our class, but so she couldn't join the call, but she sent a whole bunch of questions on the Facebook page, and she was asking a variety of things. One of them was the energetic difference between like an angry person and that is like bullying with a huge unaddressed shadow and versus someone that has an anger entity. And I think this is similar to what Lori was, we were just talking about, is that we have the psychological aspects, we have the physical aspects that are happening with humans, right? But when it's an entity, it looks like something that I see it as something attached to that person that they may be running. If they have an anger, like if they have a being attached to them and then they're operating through it, I see I guess I'm just sometimes answering these questions live. I just have to sort of tune into my my information. And what I see when a human is acting in those aggressive ways, I see them more, like I said on the page, as energy vampires, rather than running an angry entity. But they might have an entity. I would see it like as a person that might have a control or a punishment entity that they work with, that they use in their space to vampire other people's energy with their punishing approach. But that's sort of the difference between what I see as sort of an anger. When an anger entity gets attached to a person, it doesn't necessarily make them angry. It just attracts anger from other people or abuse from other people. So that's what I see as the difference between that. Like, it's one thing that's a behavioral thing, or people acting out. The difference that I sense when it's just someone expressing their anger, which, I think can be a great thing. It's a great indicator that our boundaries have been crossed, right? And when we have to get our anger, it says, oh, hey, somebody crossed my boundary, right? But it's a healthy thing. But if it's used to harm someone, then there's something else going on there, whether it's psychological or spiritual. And what I see is that people that like habitually are willing to harm other people with their anger, it's almost like having an addiction or something. And there's definitely a spiritual component to it. Another question that Lauren brought up as she was sort of talking about helper beings and protection beings. She asked if these would be, by invitation, sort of angelic. And my answer is yes. Helper beings, I didn't sort of list out all the various words that I would use to say that, but we can call in our spiritual helpers, ones that help us do healing work, ones that help us personally. There's certain types of entities that are known to support, like I call in a Maria being to support my house. They'll protect me when I sleep, and there's a certain vibration of being that does a certain type of work. It's almost like they fit. It's not like they're a little less like a unique soul, and that is what I meant by like there's certain categories like control and punishment beings are these sort of. It's almost like they're clones of the same vibration, and I see that as certain helper beings are sort of clones of a certain vibration, or that's their job, and they're not planning to evolve as a being or as a soul in the universe. She also asked, seems like we're taking seniority, taking seniority is almost synonymous with taking self-responsibility in this fifth dimensional sense. So would it be safe to say the first wave ascension individuals are coming into seniority in large numbers? and that it seems to be a huge historical energetic shift. And what I would say is that I feel like we're in a paradigm shift on the planet as souls. I feel like there's an opportunity for us to, I'm not really one that studies the ascension and not fifth dimensional stuff. Not that there's, I believe there's truth to that. It just is not something that has piqued my curiosity to sort of delve into. It's sort of similar to people ask me about aliens and lifetimes on other planets, and I'm like, yeah, but most people that I read don't need to process their alien lifetimes in this lifetime on Earth, because that's totally different information that's not really relevant to them as a soul on this planet. So I would say that my sense is that we are evolving as humanity, as a collective soul consciousness, in a way that is, for me, looks like it's likely that there's quite a few, I don't know, how do I say it, like that there's a lot of physical bodies that might not be necessary anymore as soul containers. And that's happening. It's not happened yet, but we're sort of getting to a point where there's a lot of souls that have like done enough living in human bodies and are ready to do something different. So that's sort of a big observation. She also asked about bipolar versus, I don't know medically, I'm just saying, like, I don't know how many times I've heard some woman or man tell me that their ex was bipolar. These are casual claims that a person's got mental illness, right? And I'm not denying that pharmaceuticals can help treat someone and keep things in balance in terms of their behavior, but I also believe that in some sense it's actually that those can limit a person's access to their true soul self. So it's both suppressing the being that is in their space and suppressing their true soul self in certain senses. The medications can do that, and so there is, it's case by case in terms of whether a person's actually got true mental illness. And the way I see it psychically when I look at someone is I can actually sort of see it in their brain, whether their brain has the capacity to connect certain synapses that would allow them to be the senior soul in their body. And so that might look different to someone else when you look at it, but that helps me go, oh, this person has the capacity to hold seniority over their body, or this person actually doesn't have their soul's actually got a big lesson. It's not here to be senior over this body. It has a relationship with this body, and it also has a relationship with all these other souls that are coming in and out of its body. So that's the way I see it in terms of the topic of broken brain versus mental, like mental illnesses that can be treated.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'm just sort of staring at the piece of paper that people sent that I pulled those questions off of.
So with the modality that I use, it's called internal family systems. And when a person has a part that's angry or suicidal or an addict part, from my perspective, we always see that it has a positive intention to help or protect. So it's inherently wise, inherently good. And so when you're talking about these beings that can be, like you said, anger, addict, suicidal, or any of them that you've talked about, I'm curious, like, do you see them as inherently good? Like, why are they doing these things? Are they trying to essentially get help, or do you see them as inherently bad? Or yeah,
that's a good question. I like that. What I see is that I agree with the way that psychological practice works, right? I totally agree with that. For beings, I truly believe that there are beings that harm those that they attach themselves to. And that's why they come in uninvited. They're not ones that we say, hey, come on in, I'd like you to help me with something. They're mostly beings that they come in to feed off of or make use of a physical body that they don't have. So I would say, I don't know, I tend to shy away from good or bad as a term. I look at it as harmful versus helpful. And harmful would be that I also believe that we all have these soul, like soul plans, like we want to learn something. And so there's actually really important aspects of it. It's like, I don't feel regret over any of my life, even if I've had some really challenging life experiences. I wouldn't take it back. It's made me who I am. And that includes having lots of beings come in and out of my space over the course of my life until I got to gain seniority, because those all taught me about who I am versus who I'm not, and knowing when something that's not me is in my space, and then learning how to have boundaries with it. So actually, in the sense of what your question is, maybe it is a good thing. It's part of my soul's evolution. They are playing a part in my soul's evolution. And
right. That's what I was curious about, like what their intention is behind what they're doing.
My sense is that beings that come in uninvited is that they're looking for power that they don't have without a body. So that's where the harmfulness is that they might be they're just consuming a portion of the person's energy, and depending on the frequency of them, they may be limiting a person's what they would naturally run as energy. Like if they're a control being or if they're a pain being, they're consuming some of that soul person's energy, and they're limiting what's possible for them if that being wasn't in their space. So that's what I see it as.
Awesome. Natalie, thank you. It's Cheyenne, and I wonder if I could pose an adjunct question to this too, if we have time. I've been wondering about, in the realm of kind of energetic stewardship, like when we're clearing these things out of our systems or helping someone clear them, if you could just speak a little bit more about, kind of similar to like, well, when we throw things away, there is no way that trash goes somewhere on the planet. Mm-hmm. Where, a little more about what you're doing to protect or encapsulate or diffuse or these kinds of things,
Yeah,
moving these energies out.
Lots of people, like when the most common response is people want to like send that back to that person, like give them their blah 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 back, and I get that, but to me that's like, I'd rather do the graceful thing, right? And go, okay, I want to connect it up. I'm going to give this being an opportunity to take its next step. And that's what I see it as when I use my seniority and say, I see you, and here's your opportunity to take your next step and go from, I'm detaching you from the soul and connecting you to the source. And at source, then you get to decide what happens next. It's not my responsibility. It's an energy. I believe energy is neutral, and that is not causing harm. It's just moving that energy. Now, if there's a being that does not agree to move, I will show it, and this is something we'll talk about in the next class. I'll give it an image of me erasing something else. So I'll show it psychically. Here's something, and see how I can just erase it from existence. If you don't want to move, I can erase you from existence too. And I've actually had a being recently go, please erase me from existence. I do not want to exist like this anymore. It's too, it sucks. Basically, it's sort of a suicidal being in a way, because it's like, I'm done doing this nasty work or whatever that, it was sort of interesting because I was like, okay, it's not that you're just resisting and holding on so tight to that person. You actually just want me to erase you from existence because you don't like existing in that form. And so what happens after it's erased from existence, my belief is that there's some residual connection with source, right? And we're all part of source. So I don't really need to know, honestly. But I do believe that it's neutral. We move energy out of our space. If it's somebody's energy, if it's somebody that's connecting to his energy, I always move it back to them, right? If it's something like that's not a human, that's energy, then I want to either send it to, like I usually send that to source, because I feel like that's the most gracious way to move the energy. Or with certain categories of beings, moving them into, returning to them to their, like certain types of categories of beings they have their own pod, sending them back to their pod or their of like beings. So, but we'll get into that more next class for sure. I know, well, I just realized we're already an hour. So what I'd like to do now is shift into our practice before we close. So is everybody okay with that, or does anybody have a burning question that you want to pop up with before we move? Oh, I got a timeout from Lori and everybody else. Great. Okay. Wonderful. Well, so like I mentioned before, I believe that we all can, well, I should say, somebody asked, can we all learn to read? Can we all, that was Sarah, I think. Can we all learn to see these things? I'm not sure, actually. I know that I believe we all have intuition, and I believe that we can all clear away the invalidation and start becoming more and more clear about what we're intuitively sensing. Whether everybody will be able to like get images like I do, or see orbs, or smell stuff, or hear things, clairaudient, clairsentient, feel it, smell it, see it. I'm not sure that's all of our, let all of us are meant to do that. So, but I don't see it as I don't believe that it has to be limited, right? If we want to, we can begin the path of asking Spirit for that gift and practicing honing in on it. So on that point, as we go into this practice, I'm just inviting you all to trust yourself, to trust your soul self, your higher self, to take you as far as you're ready to go. And, I was really conscious as I designed this course that, wow, am I going to give people too much, or is it irresponsible to just put all this information out here without making people work for it? Practice for 4 or 5 years or whatever. And I really just kept honing into, what, there's aspects of this that are that could be taught like we learn the alphabet when we learn how to read and write. There's aspects of this that could be taught like math, so that we can learn how to do numbers and count things and pay bills. So I feel like it's something that it's that essential to what it means to be a soul in a body, if we want to feel, particularly if we're sensitive. So if you just take a moment to close your eyes and take a deep breath with me again. And notice that grounding cord that you created at the beginning of this call. It's just for you. Nobody else is in it at this moment. You're just holding space for your own grounding. And notice your bubble again, that container around your energy field that's holding your space in sacred protection. And say hello again to the center of your head, between your ears, behind your eyes, your psychic space, your sixth chakra. That place has information for you. And it's available to be your guide as you navigate your life and your work. So as you're sitting in this space, grounded, contained, and clearly connecting to your intuition, I invite you to take that third eye, that center of head space, and look down your body to right below your belly button where your second chakra is. That's the place where you hold your creative energy, your sexual energy, and your empathic energy, where you sense and feel what's happening around you and read the world, read those in your energetic field through your body. What a gift. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, that second chakra. It's where we create life. It's where we have compassion. And just intend that that second chakra, your empathic part, the part of it that reads the world around you, is going to take a step. It's going to evolve its ways of sensing the universe. Just see the empathic part of your second chakra. Step into an elevator. You're on the second floor in your second chakra, and you're just going to push the button and say, I want to go to the 6th floor. And just watch that elevator leap, go through your power center, 3rd chakra, up through your heart. That's the 4th floor. Your throat, 5th floor. And into your 6th floor, which is the intuitive and psychic and analytical mind space. And from that 6th floor, have your empathy, have your sense of sensitivity to what's going on with people around you, with your clients, with your family members, with anybody that just happens to brush up against you at the grocery store. Just notice that empathic self stepping out of the elevator on the 6th floor and getting perspective. Being able to notice those energies with perspective and seeing them like a hawk sees the earth below when it's soaring above, catching the wind. It can hone in on the detail, and it also can look at the perspective. And notice that that part of you, that empathic, sensitive part of you, is now able to see the energy rather than have to feel it in your body. You get to see it. And what you see shows you the information. You might see someone suffering, and you can have compassion but not have to feel their suffering. You can see when they have something attached to them that's causing them harm, but you don't have to feel what's attached to them causing them harm. From that position in your 3rd eye on the 6th floor, you're watching, and you make an agreement that you will see with permission. This is an agreement of integrity that you will ask permission before you look at someone psychically, so that they don't send negative energy your way, that you will ask permission so that you are safe, and that you will get information that's there to protect you. That you will see it, and you'll be grounded and clear when you see it. And your body will be safe. With that agreement that you're going to see and use your 6th chakra, your sight, to get information as a healer and as a soul and a body, I'd like to ask you to invite your energy to come back to yourself from any place that you've left it. To see that energy come back to just above your head, bits and pieces of your consciousness that might have been out there sensing someone else's suffering, sensing someone else's needs from you. Pull all those bits and pieces back to this golden ball of light above your head, filling it up with your soul's essence, as well as a big pinch of permission to see clearly. Permission to see and to know what you're seeing, to recognize it for what it truly is. And just watch that as you reach up in your mind's eye and lower that big ball of energy that's your essence and this permission to see down over your physical body, and watch it just absorb into every cell of your body, coming down over your shoulders, into your waist, down your legs, filling up your entire aura bubble with this vibration of your true soul's essence and this step you've taken in your permission to see for yourself and to see for others when they give you the permission to do so for them. And just when you're ready, take a deep breath and open your eyes. So grateful to have you all here on this journey with me. Thank you. So we'll meet again on Tuesday with some teaching on clearing and setting our own protection. So happy to do this group connection. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Nice to meet
Care.
you,
Thank
friends.
you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you on the Facebook page.
Okay.